Princess Anne walked out of a sealed room at Buckingham Palace just before midnight, and what she was carrying changes everything inside that family. King Charles had cleared the corridor. The aides were sent home. The cameras were never told. Honestly, when a monarchy moves this quietly, it is never about routine paperwork. It is about power being placed somewhere it has never sat before. And the person it is being placed with is the one woman in that palace who never forgot what they did to Diana. There is a curtsy moment from 2005 that almost nobody remembers anymore. But it is the reason everything you are about to hear actually makes sense. Hold that detail. We will come back to it. For 50 years now, Princess Anne has been the royal nobody bothered competing with. She did the work, she skipped the headlines. In 2023 alone, she completed 457 engagements. That is more than her brother, the King. Honestly, while Harry was filming for Netflix and Camilla was being slowly rehabilitated by the British press, Anne was driving herself between charity openings in the same battered green Land Rover. No glamour, no commentary, no noise. And in the meantime, the woman who took her brother away from Diana climbed straight to the top of the institution. Camilla is queen now. The title sits on her head. The carriage stops at her door. But anyone who's watched Anne for 30 years knows something the public never quite caught. Anne never bowed once. Here is the part nobody really wants to say out loud. Camilla's entire path into the royal family was built on the wreckage of Diana's life. Diana was 20 when she married Charles. She was 36 when she died, chased through a Paris tunnel. And in between those two dates was 13 years of being told her husband was somewhere else, somewhere with Camilla. Honestly, the British public knows this story. They lived through it. But what most people forget is that Anne watched it from inside the family the entire time. She saw Diana arriving at Christmas with her hands shaking. She saw Diana sitting alone at long dinners. She saw Diana being called difficult, hysterical, paranoid, and she said nothing. Because Anne does not say things. Anne stores them. Then she waits. And the thing about waiting 50 years is that eventually the room clears, the aides go home, the corridor empties, and your brother hands you a pen. Now, you have to understand something about Anne to understand this story. She's the woman who told a kidnapper in 1974, when he pointed a gun at her in the back of a car, in those exact words, not bloody likely. He had ordered her to step out. She refused. Honestly, that one sentence tells you everything about who she really is. She raised her own children, Peter and Zara, without royal titles on purpose so they could have something close to a normal life. She's lived on the same farm in Gloucestershire for 40 years. She drives herself everywhere. She is the only woman in modern British history to compete in the Olympic Games for the United Kingdom while sitting in the immediate line of succession. That is the woman Charles called into that sealed room. According to people who worked at Kensington Palace in the early 90s, Diana used to come back from Highgrove with red eyes she would not explain. She would walk straight upstairs, sit on the floor of William's bedroom, and run her fingers through his hair while he was asleep. That was it. That was the whole ritual. No words, no tears anyone saw. Just a young mother making sure her son could still feel her hands. William was 7 years old then. He was 15 when he walked behind her coffin in front of the entire world. And for 28 years now, the woman responsible for hollowing out his mother has worn his family's jewels in public. Now look, obviously we cannot independently verify every private detail about what happened inside Diana's bedroom in 1990. Royal gossip has a way of turning private moments into shared memory. But the bigger pattern is impossible to miss, and that pattern is what made Anne agree to walk into a room at midnight last week and sign a document the rest of the country is not supposed to see for years. Now here is where this stops being family tension and starts becoming palace warfare. Prince William has spent the last decade quietly building something the press cannot see from the outside. He does not give interviews about Diana. He does not post tributes on her birthday. He does not let the cameras catch his face when her name comes up at a state event. Honestly, that silence is the loudest thing he has ever done. Because the people who actually know William, the small circle around Adelaide Cottage, say the same thing in private. He never forgave them, any of them. Not Charles for choosing Camilla, not the institution for protecting them, not the press for hunting his mother into a tunnel. He decided very young that he would never be in a position where someone could do to him what they did to her. And the person who quietly mentored that decision was his aunt. Anne and William have a relationship the palace works very hard to keep out of headlines. She's not affectionate in public, she does not pose for warm photos with him, but according to sources familiar with how Adelaide Cottage actually runs, William calls Anne first. He calls her before he calls anyone else when something at the palace stops feeling stable. Honestly, there is a reason for that. Anne knew Andrew Parker Bowles in the early 1970s. Andrew was Camilla's first husband. The two of them were genuinely close before Catholic faith, and royal protocol made the relationship impossible. So Andrew turned around and married Camilla in 1973. Camilla turned around and started seeing Anne's brother on the side, and Anne understood the full architecture of that woman before anyone in Britain did. She filed it away. She married Mark Phillips the same year. She never said a word. Then the coronation happened in May of 2023, and the first signal landed in public for anyone watching closely. King Charles named Anne his gold stick in waiting. Now, for those who do not follow ceremonial titles, gold stick in waiting means you ride beside the sovereign as personal protection. It is not handed out for show. It is handed to the person the king wants between himself and any threat. Honestly, that was step one. Step two arrived this autumn. The document Charles signed in that sealed room reportedly carries a designation insiders are calling the Princess Royal Regent Protocol. Under that protocol, if Charles becomes unable to perform his duties for medical reasons, Anne stands in. Not Camilla, Anne. The Queen Consort holds the title. The Princess Royal holds the country, and the timing was not random. Charles is managing cancer publicly. Catherine has been recovering for months. Harry is gone. Andrew is gone. Honestly, the working royal lineup is the thinnest it has been since the war. And Charles looked around that empty room and chose the one person on earth Camilla cannot influence. Camilla wears the crown, Anne holds the key. Now look, we cannot say with certainty that the document uses the exact language insiders are quoting. Palace paperwork rarely leaks word for word, but the constitutional effect of it is being described identically by multiple people close to the household. And the people close to the household understand what regent actually means. Most viewers hear the word regent and picture Victorian history books, a placeholder figure who steps in symbolically and steps out. That is not what this document does. Under modern British constitutional practice, a regent has every functional power of the sovereign. The regent signs bills into law. The regent receives the Prime Minister. The regent represents the United Kingdom on the world stage. And the regent does it without inherited title, without coronation oil. Anne is now the woman that arrangement falls to. Anne never bowed once. And honestly, this is where things stop being quiet paperwork and start becoming something Camilla genuinely did not see coming. Within 24 hours of the signing, 3 things happened in sequence that the Palace press office never announced. First, Sir Timothy Laurence, Anne's husband of more than 30 years, was elevated to Knight Grand Cross of the Royal Victorian Order. That is the highest rank inside an honour system the monarch personally controls. Honestly, Timothy has held no royal title for 3 decades. He has stood 2 steps behind his wife at every event. He has never asked for anything, and now he carries the same rank as Queen Camilla, the Princess of Wales, and the Duchess of Edinburgh. The message is not subtle. Anne's household has been raised symbolically to match the Queen Consort's. Second, a planned royal engagement Camilla was scheduled to host at Clarence House was quietly moved to Sandringham under Anne's coordination. The official line was scheduling. The actual reason, according to people inside that office, was the king asking Anne to take it. Third, Camilla's name disappeared from the published list of attendees at a private Privy Council briefing the following week. Honestly, the palace will tell you these things are routine, but 3 routine changes in a row, all moving authority away from the Queen Consort and toward the Princess Royal, are not a coincidence. That is military precision. And the person directing it is the one woman Camilla underestimated for 50 years. The moment people will remember from the entire week was not the signing. It was a 30-second clip from a charity reception in Mayfair the next evening. Camilla walked into the room first, the way protocol requires. Anne arrived 3 minutes later. The cameras caught the moment Anne crossed the floor. She nodded to the Lord Mayor. She greeted the host. She walked past Camilla without breaking stride and without lowering her head, not even an inch. Honestly, royal watchers have been replaying that clip for days because there is a curtsy Anne is supposed to perform when she enters a room containing the Queen Consort. She did not perform it. She has not performed it since 2005. And this time, in front of 40 cameras, she made absolutely sure everyone watching understood that she never would. According to one version circulating among palace staff, when an advisor asked Anne afterward whether the missing curtsy was deliberate, she reportedly answered in 5 words, "I do not bow twice." Whether that exact sentence happened in those exact words or not, it sounds exactly like Anne. And the staff who heard it understood immediately. She had bowed to her mother, she would never bow to Camilla. Camilla learned about the Regent Protocol the morning after the signing, not from Charles, from a member of her own household staff who had picked it up from a contact in the King's private office. People who were inside Clarence House that morning said her face went pale and she did not speak for almost a full minute. Honestly, that detail matters because Camilla is the most controlled public performer the royal family has produced in a generation. She does not freeze, she does not lose colour. The fact that she did both says everything. In front of her own staff, in her own house, on her own carpet. She made 3 phone calls that afternoon, one to Tom Parker Bowles, her son, one to her sister, Annabelle Elliott, the third to a senior aide whose name is being kept private for obvious reasons. Staff at Clarence House later said they had never heard her voice carry the way it did that afternoon. Camilla is famously soft-spoken. She does not raise volume in her own house. That afternoon, 2 of those 3 calls reportedly took place behind a closed study door that members of her staff had never seen her shut before. None of those calls produced what she wanted. And by the time the afternoon was over, the household understood the new arrangement was permanent. Here is the part most coverage deliberately left out. Charles never warned her. He had every chance. He sat across from Camilla at 3 meals between the audience with Anne and the morning the news leaked. He passed her the salt. He asked about her diary. He kissed the top of her head at breakfast. And he never said a single word about the document he had already signed in another room. Honestly, when a husband does that, it is not love that is fading. It is something colder. It is calculation. Now, look, none of this has been publicly confirmed by the palace, and we cannot say with certainty exactly what passed between Charles and Camilla that week. Royal gossip has a way of turning quiet calculation into accepted history, but the people who actually know how Charles thinks say the calculation is real, and the people who actually know how Anne operates are telling everyone the same thing. This was decades in the making. Diana has been dead for 28 years. Camilla wore her tiara. Camilla sat at her dining table. Camilla walked into rooms Diana built and accepted the curtsies that used to belong to Diana. And honestly, for 2 decades, the entire country was told to make peace with it. The Queen Consort got the wedding, the Princess Royal got the country. Then one quiet evening last week, in a sealed room at midnight, the King signed a document that placed the authority of the crown in the hands of the one woman in that family who never forgot. For Camilla, the title remains. For Anne, the country does. The portraits in the corridors do not change. The ribbon at the door does not change. But the order behind those palace walls just shifted in a way nobody outside can fully see yet. And honestly, the people inside that family have already understood what is coming. Anne never bowed once. And honestly, the longer you sit with that, the more you understand what is actually happening behind those palace walls.